We ready?
You are live.
Okay, let's call to order the special meeting for the budget of City Council, May 11th, 2021. The city attorney has some words of wisdom for us before we do the roll call.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed the standards set forth in the Governor's Order N-25-20, allowing public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. I'll ask Madam Clerk to please conduct the roll call and then ask the Mayor to recognize me afterward to confirm matters for the record.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Here.
Councilmember Veros.
Here.
Councilmember Zafar.
Here.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Here.
And Mayor Hudson.
Here. City attorney has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Based on the responses to the roll call, the record should reflect that all council members can hear the proceedings clearly. And if there are no objections, the record will further reflect that each council member believes, based on voice, facial recognition, or otherwise, that the persons representing themselves to be council members are in fact council members today. And seeing no objections and some thumbs up, I will turn the meeting back over to you, Mr. Mayor, with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call.
Oh, this is killing me. Secretary, next item.
Item 2, public comment.
Public comment is open. Now's the time for anyone in the audience to address the city council on any item not on the agenda today. No, this is a special meeting. I guess you can do it right now if you want to make a comment on the budget. Next item, I'm looking under attendees and they all look pretty familiar, but not anyone from the public. Okay, public comment. One last time. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one, public comment is closed. Next item, please.
Item 3.1, City of Santa Rosa Preliminary Operating Budget Fiscal Year 2021-22 and Capital Improvement Program.
Eva Phelps, you have the floor.
Well, I want to first welcome everyone, and City Manager may have some comments before I get started. So I just wanted to double check that before I get started.
I'm sorry, City Manager, I should have asked you first.
Well, this is another presentation of the budget refined after council member comments. There will be some discussion limited to the ARPA money, the American Recovery Plan Act that just came out with about 150 pages of information on how these funds can be sent or be spent. And so we are digging through that now. There's a lot of questions regarding it, and there's a lot of clarifications that need to happen. So we'll be presenting this budget as if we were receiving all those funds in the way in which we originally submitted to the council. It is likely, though, we'll need another budget session in order to further clarify that piece of it prior to the final approval of the budget. And so my guess is that this budget will probably go to the June first meeting in June for approval.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, I just out of natural causes called on. Yeah, I guess I should ask Kelly, do you have anything you'd like to add, or do we just go right to Eva?
I think you already are speaking to the important people, so just pass me up and go straight to Eva.
Oh, see this guy's genius. Go ahead, Eva.
Okay, so I do have a PowerPoint presentation for you.
Good.
Next slide. Okay, so I'll be doing the operating budget, and then Maria Ferner, the Public Works Director, will be handling the Capital Improvement Program presentation. So we're here to give you an overview of the proposed 21-22 city operating budget. We just, as City Manager Joe Gordon just mentioned, we just recently, which was last night at 7-something at night, that we got updates on the American Rescue Plan Act eligible and ineligible uses. So we're going through that and have to incorporate and understand what's uses that we can include in our budget and what uses we cannot. And then following my presentation, we have the capital budget. So the council will be asked to consider adopting the budget in sometime in June. So as you can see in your package, you should have the full draft budget. Staff made significant efforts to redesign the budget document, so I hope you like it. I want to give a shout out and publicly thank Vivian Gong, our senior analyst, who spent so many nights, weekends putting this together. She actually took the lead. We've been having this on our work plan to kind of refresh the budget, and she took the lead and did a great job. So I hope you all appreciate the information. So we were trying to convey information and allow for better flow of information through a logical sequence. And then also we want to submit it to the GFOA for their Distinguished Budget Presentation Awards program, similar to what we do for the CAFR. So the proposed budget is for all city funds and programs. We have general fund, we have several special revenue funds, we have the two GADs, we have the housing successor, some debt service funds, our capital improvement program, and the internal service funds. It's consistent with April's study session. However, we did include the in the proposed budget funding for the Doherty Valley CSA capital projects that were on the unfunded list at the last meeting in April. So the total budget revenues for the city is 121.5 million. Surplus funds, the accumulated in prior years, provide the remaining funding of 1.3 to cover the total expenditures for the budget. 45% is general purpose. The other 55% is restricted for specific purposes. Next slide. So this is just a graph kind of showing you how the breakup of the funding that makes up that 121.5 million. The expenditure budget is 122.8 million, is 4.5 million or 3.6 less than the 2021 adopted budget. And it consists of the operating budget is 85.5 million, which I will go into detail about the operating budget. We have special revenue funds that are non-operational operating, that's 500,000. Debt service is 3.8 million. Capital budget is 17 million. Internal service funds is 15.8 million. And the Doherty Valley GAD is 800,000, which is included in the operating. And the housing successor is about 100,000. Next slide. So the 4.5 decrease in the overall budget comprised of a decrease in the capital budget of 13.9 million, a decrease in debt service. One of the debt service went from being 1.5 million per year. Now it's down to just 500,000, and we only have about 3 more years on that one. And then we have the general fund increase by 4.6 million, internal service funds 3.8, the operating funds 1.7, and the special other funds increased 300,000. So some significant factors impacting operating expenditures is our utility costs, service contracts, and employee wage and benefit costs. This is just a chart kind of showing you the split by fund that makes up the $122.8 million in expenditures. Next slide. So the operating budget, the funds that are included in that is general fund, the Doherty Valley CSA, the 20 special lighting and landscaping funds. We have the non-point drainage stormwater fund, the 2 GAD funds, and then there's some other small special revenue operating funds. So the operating revenue is 95.2 million, and 57.7% of that general fund makes up that percentage. When you look at expenditures by department, 85.5 million, there were an increase from the adjusted budget for this year of 6.1, and that's really just bringing our expenditures trying to recover from the COVID pandemic. Next slide. So the staffing levels have increased by 5 FTEs, full-time equivalents. Community development is converting 2 limited term positions to regular permanent status, which would be an office specialist and a building inspector. Police services is adding 1 police officer. However, this position will be funded, majority funded by a grant from the county for the mental health evaluation team program. And Public Works Department is adding 1 maintenance tech position and converting 1 GIS office specialist from a limited term to regular permanent status. And this was all in the workshop from April. City staffing level, we just like to put this in here to kind of show, our population growth and how things looked a few years ago compared to what it's looking today. Our city population number is pending. The state has still not issued an update on what the city population based on the 2020 census. And as you can see, back in 2011-12, we were at pretty much 269 FTEs, and we're going to be at 278 FTEs. Next slide. So the general fund, this chart is showing, because I'm moving on into general fund. So the general fund revenue is estimated to be 55 million, excluding the transfers, which is about 2.5 million or 4.7 higher than 2021 revised budget. And as you can see that from the chart below, either the revenue is kind of increased, or it's kind of coming back, or it's still below average, especially like in TOT. We're showing it coming back, but not at the levels that we had before. Next slide. So the general fund expenditure budget is also 55 million, excluding transfers out, which is 4.5 million or 8.9% more than the 2021 amended budget. Significant factors impacting the general fund expenditures include restoring expenditures from the COVID-19 reductions, utility cost service contracts, employee wage and benefits, the new positions, funding the infrastructure maintenance fund, and funding Doherty Valley. This chart shows you expenditures by department and showing how it increased over this year, 4.5 million. The biggest increase is police services and public works, but they are the larger departments, so they can go up just 3% in theirs, make a big difference in the budget. So on the general fund transfers, I kind of bolded this American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. What we had did in the previous workshop and what's in the current package you have today, we have included the 7.15 million. However, we know that we need to get clarification as to whether that can stay within the general fund, transferring it to the general fund. So that's the reason why we probably would need we do need another workshop to kind of understand it, get clarity, and then we can come back to the council and kind of let you know updates on what information we have at that time. So we're still going with the same budget that we presented to you in April. However, we will be coming back. So the net transfers in and out, there's the net in is 1.2 million. Next slide. So the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA, you know that San Ramon was allotted 14.3 million. We set up a special fund for tracking. However, on yesterday, the Secretary of Treasury issued an interim final rule. So it's called a final rule, but it's interim. So we know that there's still things that they're trying to clear up. And this just establishing what's under the American Rescue Plan. Next slide. So here are some of the eligible uses we found within that 150-page document is that the uses are responding to public health emergency or negative economic impacts associated with the emergency, and it's intended to provide relief for households and businesses facing near and long-term negative economic impacts. The other use is support workers performing essential work by providing premium pay or providing grants to eligible employers. Next slide. Also, under government services, this is the area we really need to get clear and get clarity on this. Includes but are not limited to maintenance or pay-go funding, building of infrastructure, including roads, modernization of cybersecurity, including hardware, software, and protection of crucial infrastructure, health services, environmental remediation, school or educational services, and the provision of police, fire, and other public safety services. So the other caveat to this is that those services must be devoted to mitigating or responding to COVID-19 public health emergencies. Also, a use is making necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. Hiring public sector employees to restore their workforce up to pre-pandemic levels. So that's another use. And also point out that all of this is prospective uses that have been incurred beginning March 3rd, 2021. We didn't see anything that you can go back retroactively prior to March 3rd and use those funds for anything that we've already spent our money on. So some of the ineligible uses is replenishing. This is where it's kind of sticky. Replenishing financial reserves such as a rainy day funds or reserve funds. So we have to get clarity on that. Also, we knew about the pension payments. You can't use it for making payments towards CalPERS to pay down your unfunded liability. And you also cannot use it for cost of debt issuance incurred prior to March 3rd, 2021. Okay, so that's on the ARPA, and we'll kind of show you just one thing that we kind of made a change regarding that. So moving on, anyone have any questions before I move on to other funds?
Keep going.
Okay.
So we cannot use it to, the fact that we lost revenue, we can't use it to backfill lost revenue?
Not to our knowledge right now. There's nothing in that document that states that, even though you calculate how much your losses are, but those losses are for funding going forward that fit into those categories. So you can spend it on any of those eligible uses.
So, well, going forward then, the TOT there's a great big hole where TOT used to be. Even going forward, it hasn't recovered.
Right.
So if I can just jump in real quickly, we have some questions that we've reached out to Townsend to get some clarification. There's some other questions. Obviously, as you can understand, it's not fully baked, and the directions are confusing in some areas. So it appears that the revenue piece of it, lost revenue, is meant to stay in there according to Townsend. And so until we get some clarification, I think we could go all sorts of directions and not really end up where we want to be. So I think my advice at this point in time would be we'll dig real deep, we'll get clarification, and we'll be able to come back at a meeting and tell you what it really means. Because right now we just don't know everything. There's lots of twists and turns that may or may not actually be what was intended. So that'll be our primary focus as soon as we start moving forward to get really solid clarification so that we know what the act money can be used for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eva, you meant to say 2021 and not 2020?
2021.
Okay, so just
So
this.
you're talking about the March 3rd.
Yeah.
March 3rd, 2021 is when the beginning to incur expenses.
For me, it sounds like they want us to spend all the money, not to keep any reserves, so to build the economy.
Yeah, or have a plan as to how you're going to, in the future, spend it. So right now, we don't see anything showing that we can go retroactive and make up for all the costs that we've already spent or lost.
Yeah.
We'll find a way. Keep going, Eva.
So on the Doherty Valley CSA fund, that fund tracks the cost for the CSA area. Expenditures are 23.6 million, up 1.6 million from the revised budget. And I see an error on that. I got to fix that. And it includes a $500,000 contribution to capital projects. Sources that fund the CSA is the CSA assessments, property tax, and other funding sources, which is the general fund. New infrastructure coming online for 21-22, increasing to 12.5 acres of landscape, 2.4 street miles of roadways and sidewalks, 126 streetlights, and 0.25 miles of trail. So the equipment replacement fund, we'll be replacing about 600,000 of vehicles and equipment and 300,000 of computer equipment. At the end of the fiscal year of June 30th, 2022, we'll have 4.5 million of projected estimated reserves available for future equipment and vehicles and IT replacement.
For this, we've gone back to the policy committee, right? To look at when we replace the cars and stuff. Whether we do plan to replace them with regular or with energy efficient or EV. I know that was the discussion which happened.
Are we talking policy or infrastructure, city manager?
Was it policy? I thought it went back to policy committee to decide what our policy going forward for any of the.
Oh, I don't know any. Joe, do you know about that?
Not recently.
Recently, yeah.
Yeah. Not even
Well, I would say that's a question we have at the end to decide whether or not on page 26, because it's outside of what the budget is now, is how we spend, to get your question right, future funds or these funds plus future funds on vehicles and equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Existing, these and future.
Okay, let's bring that up after we get budget stuff out of the way. Go ahead. It is budget, but I mean, you know what I mean.
Next slide. So on the infrastructure maintenance fund, the beginning fund balance would be about 600,000. The transfer in from the general fund is 1.5. The capital budget is using 1.6 million of funds. So we'll have about 500,000 at the end of the fiscal year. The retiree healthcare funding reflect about 1.8 million of budget for retiree health from the departments to fund that. And we have about 38.2 million set aside in a trust as of April, end of April. As of the last actuary that was done in April of 2020, study shows that we're 95% funded and we have about 32.7 million in liability. So the next actuary is due in 2022. We are allowed to request reimbursements from the trust for to reimburse ourselves. However, we have no deposits going into the trust in this proposed budget. Pension costs, PERS pension, the unfunded liability is projected at 42 million. That's an increase of 5.9 million from the previous CalPERS actuary. We've implemented several strategies to address rising pension costs. We've created a second tier benefits for classic members hired after July 1, 2012. We've created a pension trust to pre-fund obligations, and employees pay their full employee portion, and they also pay 3% of the city's portion. Regarding our pension obligation bond, because it's an extension of CalPERS, we've actually refinanced that, and now we carry that debt on our books. The debt service payment is about 1.5 million, and at the end of June 30th, 2022, our principal balance will be 14.2 million. So regarding the pension trust, the balance as of March, that's the most recent report that we have. They didn't have the April report available yet, but we have a balance of 4.9 million. And also, we're not depositing any monies into the trust, and it's not proposed in this budget at this time. So in general fund reserves, the policy requires to maintain at the 36% of estimated revenues, including the transfer from to the Doherty Valley. That what would satisfy it is 18.1 million is 36%, that 36%. Right now we are exceeding our policy. What we did with this slide, as you notice in your budget book, the revised budget projection, ending fund balance for June 30th, 2021. This is where we took the 7 million from the ARPA money that we're getting. We had it included because we know we will get it sometime by the end of this fiscal year. So we have removed that. But we still have it in the 21-22 to have that one payment being transferred in for the general fund. So at the end of next fiscal year's budget, we should have a fund balance of reserves of 21.8 million. And we'll go into it more detail once we come back at the next budget workshop to kind of explain all the things that we may have had to do if we have to make any changes. So budget adoption steps, we will need another budget workshop on May 25th. We need to get clarification on uses for the ARPA. Then we will need direction from council, and then we'll be looking to adopt the proposed budget sometime in June. So that ends my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Okay, let's start it off with Sridhar. You have any questions? And then Mark, and we'll go to our finance committee.
So on pension obligation bond, it's refinanced, and do we have the maturity date, like end date when it will be done?
Yes, and if you look in the book, the budget book, we have a schedule.
Okay, I got that one then, guess.
Yeah, so we include that showing all the payments every year and how it go out. I think it may go out to 2038, I believe.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that published is after the refinance. Okay.
Yes.
Sounds good. And one more thing is regarding this TOT, I was looking at the document attached with the meeting, like within the agenda packet. So the TOT, that looks very promising, like from 1.3, 2.4, 4.3. In past, like it was like 3.3. So are we adding more rooms? Is that the reason we are expecting more TOT?
They're open.
But it's going
Mainly they're open.
4.7. Last, like in 2019, 3.3. Like now I see in 2025, like 4.7. So I was like, wow, are we opening more rooms or we getting more hotels by then? So
Price too.
Are you talking about the TOT?
yeah, TOT taxes.
We do have budgeted, and I know in the 5-year, we know that there's going to be a hotel coming online, but I don't know what year that is.
Okay.
And I think in our new budget, we did show our projections out for 5 years. So that's one of the checklists, I believe, from the GFOA. As part of this Distinguished Award, you have a checklist of things that they want you to include. So you will now see not just the current year, but you'll see some projections 5 years out.
And one, like regarding this, the chart that is given on page, all the capital improvements program, like really looks good. I really like that table format. Only one thing is when I was trying to find out what is the funding, like how it is connected to which fund, that's I'm not able to understand. Is it possible to add the fund, like page 101, packet page 110?
Do you know the page? Because I don't have the packet. Do you have the page of the budget document itself?
101.
Say that again.
101.
Is this the capital projects?
Yeah, so that's a nice table. Like I get all like just take these two tables, then this table will help me to navigate all the CIPs that's going on. This is really good one.
Yeah, well, this particular page, the projects that will be undertaken in fiscal year 21-22, that's just an extraction from the full CIP project booklet. So we just do a summary page and tie it to the actual detailed document that the Public Works Department prepares. And they'll be talking about that later today.
Yeah, but is there any document where I can look at, for example, when I saw on page number, let's say, one of the examples is Cami Code landscape repair, right? On page 101, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's take example, when I see that like $5 million, I'm like, wow, 5 million. But then I know it is from GAD, right? So I won't be worried. Oh, it's from GAD. That's like something like that. If we can get that info, it will be.
Yeah, well, in the CIP binder, it will have everything by source, the funding sources that fund these projects. It'll have a complete description of the project. So it's very thorough information that gives you everything you probably will need.
Yeah, so that's like each project and underneath, right? So I was thinking like if we have some simple table like this, that will be much easier for me. But anyway, that's one other thing I was looking at. Yeah. And
We have Maria pop up, maybe.
I saw Maria pop up.
Yeah, I popped up. Good afternoon. So in our CIP booklet that we put together, we have various tables that will provide that information for you. So they are summarized in several different ways that you can find that information. So whether it's the funding source, whether it's the category, or whether it's the projects that are being undertaken in a particular year, we have tables that show that information for each project.
perfect, that helps me a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Armstrong?
Yeah, I think the only questions I had really had to do with the ARPA funding. And since, you know, that's still kind of up in the air, I guess the only one I'd ask for now is with regard to the 5 full-time employees that we are hiring now. Was that something we put on hold because of the pandemic? And do you think that would be an eligible use of the funding to pay for the hiring of those employees now?
Well, that's what we're looking at too.
Yeah.
Especially the positions, the temps that we had to lay off during this past year. So all of that we're looking at to see if those are reimbursable expenses, or we can hire them back and those will be eligible expenses.
Okay, good. Yeah, I hope that they'll certainly clarify this whole use of the reserve fund. I mean, if there was ever a rainy day fund use, the pandemic was it. And I just can't believe that we wouldn't be able to kind of take advantage of replenishing that reserve for anything we drew down from that due to the pandemic. But anyway, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Great work. Super preparation of this preliminary operating budget.
Get used to it. We get spoiled by these people every year. Member Perkins and then Chair Zafar.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, great job on putting together the budget. You know, Dave's just right. I've been looking at 18 years worth of these things, and I don't know if they're getting better, but maybe they are. But they've been good for 18 years.
It's Eva. She only comes in temporarily.
Yeah, I know. So Kelly, you've got big shoes to fill there.
Don't put any pressure on him.
Yeah, no,
You'll have an out here.
Yeah. Make sure you don't give him the combination to the lock on his ankle bracelet. No, thank you very much. Great job. And I know you guys will dig hard, and the Townsend folks will help settle issues, and we'll make the best and appropriate use of the ARPA funds. Thanks.
Chair Zafar, and then we'll get into your question about the vehicles, see if we can come Ms.
Yeah,
Sumner.
no questions. I think, thank you so much, Eva. That was really well laid out. Really, I think I like the little dollar thing.
I know, isn't it
With
cute?
the breakdown, I thought that was cool. I'm just very impressed with how little money this, you guys are doing such amazing stuff. I just continue to be impressed. I talk to people and I tell them, compared to what some of the other cities have in terms of revenues and what we have, we're just doing such an amazing job. So thank you for, really giving us a balanced budget and making this so much easier for us. That was all my comment. And then if we can just, the point I raised about as we start looking at especially buying cars and stuff, are we exploring? I know this was a while back. I can't remember if it was last year that it was going to go to the policy committee, I believe, to talk about what our policy about getting new cars is going to be. Is it going to be, are we going to be investing in hybrid, or as we move towards a carbon neutral goal of 2035? So did that discussion happen? Mayor Hudson, you were on the policy committee, no?
Yeah, if I can, before you jump into it, City Manager, to stay with what we're talking about now, which is just the budget that's in front of us. I think I'd vote on it tonight. My questions are going to come down to the same thing, and that is, we cannot continue, even though it's the rules that we operate under, taking general fund money and sending it to Doherty Valley with the 800-pound gorilla we have that's 5,000 trees out there. And I wonder if there's a way to, I said before, whether we can get into the lighting and landscaping and address this specifically for things like trees. I drove by Athens Downs today. I swear we're going to lose half our redwoods over there. It looks like Fahey Park right before it went. And I'm saying, do we need to get ahead of it? That's not part of this budget right now, and I have no reason to do it. But I think at some time, maybe it's a retreat issue where we've really got to sit down and say, how are we going to keep everything the way we want to keep it? As far as the page 26 and the vehicles, I don't know if you want to respond to it tonight as far as policy or infrastructure, because we had vehicles there and it is in there. I think the finance component of it will be answered when we accept it as part of the budget. What I would really like to see, and it's one of the things I've been fighting for, and that is this APTA conference, where you see what is available before you start committing to. I swear half the stuff that I thought was great became old news by the time I went to the APTA conference or the electric vehicle symposium in Kobe. I know that I convinced the Marins to send Chris Weeks back to Houston to see all the new stuff. It's all old stuff. But I mean, there's so much of it that's new that if we want to do the equipment, I would like at least somebody that is going to be negotiating the contracts to take a look at what's out there. It doesn't always have to be the trip. This year, I tried to get all of you to it in Anaheim, but the state wouldn't open up. So they've gone from Anaheim to Orlando. No, I'm not gonna pitch. We send you guys to Orlando, but I would stay behind the city manager or his selectee to go to it. Every 3 years, this is a major, major thing. And they have one in February, usually, or March down in Long Beach. So yeah, if it comes time for us to buy it, I would like, I don't know if it's policy or infrastructure to take a look at it, but let's set this thing up separately. If you think it should be policy right now and somebody wants to say it, so be it. Joe, if I'm missing something, tell me.
So I think it's identified what correct me if I'm wrong, council members, as far as your interest is in to keep moving towards a green goal of our vehicles, not necessarily the budgetary piece of this. It's not as it is the vehicle replacement fund part of it, but your interest in is progression towards a more sustainable vehicle and not just the regular gas vehicles that we have in some areas. And so that's, we have explored that. We have not done it at the policy committee to this point. I know Chief Stevens has looked at opportunities for patrol cars. They're just starting to get into what you can do with patrol cars. We do have a hydrogen station here as well, but that station, in all honesty, is not very reliable just yet, speaking from experience. But I know that Maria's team is also working and looking at greener type vehicles. But then, you know, we have to understand the market because they have heavy duty trucks and things. So the answer is yes. It sounds like it's not specific to the budget piece of today, but more what the strategy is moving forward in the future as far as going green. And we certainly can put together a group. And you did bring this up, and it was, I believe, to be directed to the policy committee. So
let's solidify it for you, for Sabina. It goes to policy, and then go ahead, finish up, Sabina. And then
I was just going to say,
Councilmember
are there
Perkins.
any cost implications as well, right? The reason I said it might be associated with budget, there might be some cost implications of what we may have negotiated in the past, as you know, who we were buying cars from, and you know what we might want to do. So that's why I think it might impact our budget in some way. Might be more expensive. I don't know.
I'll chime in on that after Perkins, because I do have some points that will help. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I do want to move us in that direction, but I'd like to be cautious in that hybrids is a well-established field, and as there are hybrids available that meet our needs, I would fully support those. The fully electric, part of the problems. Interesting article this week in the paper. The E-Mustang takes 95 hours to recharge at 110 volts. At 220 volts, it takes 14 hours to recharge. And so, whereas Mark and his Tesla has developed a far superior charging system, their vehicles are are substantially more than what we're currently paying for our police cars. So as we go forward, we need to not only look at, you know, can this vehicle be used for this purpose, but what is the cycle time? In an article about the Fremont Police Department, they work well as a police car, but you have to have twice as many of them because of the charging cycle. You can't just, you know, in less than 10 minutes, refuel the gas tank, and then the next officer can take that car out for his shift. Even with the fast charging system of Teslas, you have to have roughly twice as many cars. So yeah, we're moving in that direction. Yeah, I support it, but you have to look at the entire operational cycle of that vehicle.
Okay, let me get us back to budget, because I can see Martin starting to frown a little bit over there. I think we're good with the budget part of it, but let me be clear. I'm going to the APTA conference through 3CTA. I'm going to ask the council to fund at least one person for the city manager to go back there to see what is available. And when they have actual police cars and you're actually talking to the people like our two people from finance are discussing right now, I don't want to just buy something to be the first one to buy it. There is also going to be the biofuel changes and get a darn good idea. And I'll bring it up because I know Scott brought it up, like with the housing, where these vehicles can charge your house when you have a rolling brownout. I mean, I actually saw this working in 2018. So it's to get ahead of it, but have an idea. The most important part about sending it this year is the VW lawsuit opens up for applications should we approve this budget. And I know the Air District is looking for these kind of strategic incentives for purchases. So it's all happening right now. I have absolutely no problem if after we've approved this budget, if we're sitting down and when you're purchasing it, to bring it to policy, it might be 2 or 3 different kinds. I mean, it might be hydrogen's making a big comeback, but if you wish to send it through policy, or if you want to wait till the end of the year, we shift you into policy or something like that. But the reality is, I think there is commitment from the council to do what council member Safar has brought up tonight. Is that good enough for now?
That's good. And then for the APTA conference, do you need something from us right now to approve that?
No, we have to agendize it anyway. There will be something that comes for me anyway, a minute order, but as the chair of the County Connection, they're going to send me. We can't do it in California now. They've shut down, and Florida's open. So that's what it is, but it will be up. It's just a matter of, we're still talking November. So we've got time, but anything that comes up at the Air District between now and then, I'll make sure I bring it up. And the VW is opening up this week, I think. Anyway, what do you need now for, what are we, 3.1, Christina? Have you got direction? Interim Director Phelps?
Yes, we'll be coming back to you on May 25th or some meeting that everyone agrees to.
Anything more on this, or can we move on to 3.2?
We can move on. Thank you all.
Okay. What is 3.2, Christina?
The capital improvement program is part of 3.1.
Okay, and that is City Manager Gordon. Who are you going to bring on for this?
Maria Ferner will be handling the capital improvement.
Okay, Maria. Can we let her in? There she is.
I am here. So let me, my face.
Pretty pictures.
Thank you. I lost my face though. Hang on. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
No,
Oh, you're good. Keep
Okay.
going.
I'm happy to be presenting to you the 5-year CIP for 21 to 2026. And we will be presenting to you today the review process, the new CIPs being introduced in 21-22, the capital budget for 21-22, what the 5-year CIP looks like, a summary of the revisions, project highlights in the 5-year CIP, a brief update on the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund and the Doherty Valley CSA and unfunded CIPs and next steps. So we've gone through the full review process and approval process. The unfunded CIPs were presented to the City Council at the first budget workshop on April 13th. On April 14th, the Parks Commission reviewed the Parks and Facilities portion of the CIP. The Transportation Advisory Committee reviewed the circulation and signals. The Infrastructure Committee reviewed the 5-year pavement management plan, and they also reviewed the Doherty Valley tree planting annual work plan and infrastructure maintenance fund update. The Finance Committee reviewed the full draft 5-year CIP and the capital budget for 21-22. The Planning Commission approved the CIP for general plan conformance on May 4th. And after today's presentation, I will be presenting this as part of the budget approval with the operating budget. So as far as the feedback we received from the various committees and commissions, the Parks and Community Service Commission did recommend the addition of a Qriket field installation. They also recommended and appreciated the addition of shade structure installation using Props 2068, as well as continuing to evaluate the installation of structures throughout the city parks. They inquired about renovation of Crow Canyon Gardens and inquired about the Cal High tennis courts and lighting, and if possible to add lighting on the courts that do not currently have lighting. The Transportation Advisory Committee inquired about the bicycle pedestrian enhancements and citywide ITS proposed improvements and agreed with the draft 5-year as presented. The Infrastructure Committee regarding the pavement management, they received the presentation of the 5-year plan and approve the plan and staff's approach, and recommended to look at setting a policy to maintain a minimum PCI and continue to look for other funding to maintain the city's PCI. The Finance Committee recommended moving the draft 5-year CIP to the full council, and the Planning Commission approved the CIP for general plan conformance. The Infrastructure Committee reviewed on May 10th the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund and received the update, recommended the fiscal year 21-22 annual report of the Doherty Valley trees and its funding. So the 5-year CIP has a total of 9 new CIP projects being introduced, and this slide shows all the various projects, and I will go through each one individually. So the first one is the Qriket field installation in the parks category for $300,000. It is programmed for fiscal year 21-22 for the design portion in the amount of $25,000. This is funded by the Park Development Fund. Beyond 5 years, we have $275,000 as it remains, that portion remains unfunded, the construction aspect. So we're looking at converting an existing sports field to a dedicated Qriket field and pitch to include batting cages and storage for co-sponsored Qriket pitch league events. There have been some possible locations that staff has looked at, including Sports Park, East Branch, and Hidden Valley. Fostoria Way Costco driveway traffic signal has been added in fiscal year 21-22 in the amount of $631,000. This is funded by the developer. This project is to install a new traffic signal and interconnect at the intersection of Fostoria Way and the new Costco gas station driveway. They'll also be installing fiber optic interconnect as well as a pedestrian upgrade. Another project added is the Iron Horse Middle School field replacement in the parks category for $2.6 million, and this is scheduled for beyond 5 years. This is to replace one of the existing fields at Iron Horse Middle School with a synthetic field, and it is a condition of approval for the City Walk development, where the developer will be required to design and construct the project when the 1,250th building is issued. We have the Pavement Management 2026 being added in the 5th year of the CIP in the amount of $4.6 million. The funding is coming from gas tax and Measure J, as well as the Refuse Vehicle Impact Fee Fund. Also added in the 5th year, we have our pavement repair stopgap project for $400,000. Funding is coming from gas tax and Measure J, and this project will provide repair of localized failed pavement that are safety concerns. This is a 2-year project, and work will supplement the annual pavement management repair plan. The Joint Public Safety Complex has been added into the CIP in fiscal year 21-22 in the amount of $26.8 million. The funding is coming from the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District. The work has begun. Actually, the notice to proceed will be issued on May 17th, and the project is expected to be completed by August of 2022. The Sidewalk Repairs Project 2026-2027 has been added in the 5th year. It is funded by gas tax and Measure J in the amount of $250,000, and that will provide repair and maintenance required on sidewalks, curbs, and gutters that are identified as tripping potential or improvements necessary for ADA compliance. And then we have the Sunrise Ridge Park, the Preserve Neighborhood Park, which is what it was previously called. This is in the parks category for $8.75 million, funded by the developer. And this will add 12.9 acres of park and 0.7 acres of rose garden on the south side of Faria Preserve Parkway. The work will include play areas, baseball and soccer fields, sports courts for basketball, bocce ball, and tennis, and restrooms.
When do you expect that to be complete?
That should be completed the beginning of fiscal year 22-23.
Okay, so next summer. Okay.
Yes. The traffic impact mitigation fee study update that has been included in the fiscal year 21-22. The last study was done in 2016, so it's time to update this study. This will update the traffic mitigation fee to be consistent with the 2040 general plan update, the bicycle master plan, and the intelligent transportation system master plan. So now moving on to the capital budget for 21-22. There are a total of 73 projects. They're either new, programmed for this fiscal year, or have been reprogrammed for this the 21-22 fiscal year. The total amount is $53 million. This slide shows the expenditures by category. So we have all of the various categories, and as you can see, facilities is the largest amount of 29 million, and the majority of that cost is associated with the public safety complex.
Drainage, 0? Is that real?
Yes, so we actually have carryover funding from the previous year, and so we have we already have funding, so we didn't need to allocate any for this coming fiscal year.
Thanks.
Looking at those same numbers graphically, you can see that we have circulation for 10.9 million, facilities 29.2 million, and parks of 9.75 million. This slide shows all the expenditures by funding source. So looking at it from a different way, totaling the 53 million, you can see all the various costs associated with each funding source. Looking at that graphically, the majority of the funding is alternative funding. A big component of that is the public safety complex. Developer is related to the park, Sunrise Park, and we have the gas tax and Measure J, and then we have the SEC JEPA, and that 4 million is for the Crow Canyon Road widening. So looking more specifically at the alternative funding, there's a total of 28.59 million. We have the city facilities floor covering replacement. Half of the cost of that is being paid for by the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. This is to replace the wood floor in the Iron Horse Gym. The marquee installation at the transit center is paid for out of the transit sales revenue. So last year we had an allocation of 50,000. We're adding another 10,000, and the marquee will be installed by the end of this calendar year. Pavement management 2021 that money is from the refuse vehicle impact fee. I already mentioned the PSC building, and then we have the shade structure. This is the Prop 68 grant in the amount of $177,592. So we also have the certificate of participation. I wanted to highlight this funding source. So this coming fiscal year 21-22, we have a total of 1.65 million we're proposing to have appropriated. 650,000 to the Citywide bicycle network improvements and enhancements, and 1 million to the Doherty Station Community Center and library renovations. And I'll be talking about those projects more specifically in the later in the presentation. This slide shows all of the projects funded by the certificate of participation. So as you can see, when we first determine what projects would be funded by the COP, there's about $23.5 million identified. So as we get to fiscal year 21-22 and the proposed appropriations, we look at the estimated balance of 1.67 million. So that is the balance based on what is encumbered, what has been encumbered, and what has been spent to date. Okay, moving on to the 5-year CIP 21-26. The 5-year CIP has a total of 133 projects for 101.3 million. So looking at this expenditures by fiscal year, as you can see, our first fiscal year is 53 million, and the majority of this is from external funding. And then we have about an average of 12 million in years 2 through 5. Looking at the 5-year by expenditures by category, the majority of the funding is going towards the circulation, then facilities, and then parks, and then signals. And then when you look at the expenditures by funding source, the majority of the funding is coming from alternative funding. Then we have the developer funds, the gas tax and Measure J, which goes to pavement management, stopgap, and sidewalks. Infrastructure maintenance fund is about 6 million. And then the unfunded portion of 14.8 million is for the intelligent transportation system upgrade, and then our Doherty Valley trees programmed at 1 million per year. So there are a number of revisions that are made between the existing 5-year CIP and the proposed five-year CIP for next year. The reprogramming has been based on coinciding with current development projects such as the City Center, the Faria Preserve, and City Walk and Chang. It's also based on funding availability such as the COP Infrastructure Maintenance Fund, our Traffic Improvement Fund, the Park Development Fund, and the SEC GPA. There have been some changes in project priorities and project scope. And as we have been doing for at least a year now, complete whole building renovations at one time to reduce overall disruption to the public and increase cost efficiencies.
Before you leave that, I hope I'm not the only one that's going to say this, but whether or not you predicted we were going to have COVID shut this place down for a year or not, you deserve a lot of credit for pulling this off. These guys were working like crazy in this building, and to have this thing done, I can't imagine what we would have been doing or the disruption if we didn't have this shut down and do this exactly when you did with the COP and everything. This really worked out fine. Yeah. And if you haven't had a chance to come in here and see the permit area, the way it's been set up, I strongly suggest you get in here quick. This really looks great. Kudos to all of you. Fantastic job.
Thank you.
Now you can go ahead. We'll find something else to take that attaboy away.
No. Okay, so start highlighting some of the projects in the 5-year CIP. I'll start in the circulation category. So the pavement management program for 21-22, our project budget is 4.86 million. Pavement management, we have a number of streets throughout the city that we will be addressing. El Costa Boulevard Rehabilitation Project, that is from Veracruz to Olympia Fields. Construction, the construction is planning to start in July. We're going to be advertising this week. Total cost for that project is 5.8 million. The 5-year Outlook Pci after the 5th year is 75. We are currently at 78. The funding scenarios were presented to the Infrastructure Committee following the critical point assessment methodology. And the Infrastructure Committee also started the discussions to look at setting a policy for targeting a minimum PCI with a range of 75 to 78 that was initially discussed. Pavement management funding, a big component of this right now is the refuse vehicle impact fee that was established in fiscal year 17-18. So we started collecting the fees July 1st of 2018. And so what we have received to date is close to 4 million. And this slide shows how much we anticipate to receive over the next 5 years. Also under circulation, this is our really big project, Iron Horse Trail Pedestrian Overcrossing at Bollinger Canyon Road. Project cost is 21 million. A various number of funding sources. We were able to get a loan with CCTA for the STIP funding, and that payback is being done by Measure J starting fiscal year 2021. The agreement with CCTA for design and construction support is in place. So design is well underway. We selected a design consultant and a cost estimator. So the design will be complete hopefully by the beginning of next calendar year. So the length of design time is due to the intricacies and the magnitude of the project. It is a custom design bridge, so there is much more detail and need for review, and the coordination with the construction manager, CCTA, the city, cost estimator, and the general contractor. We are currently at 35% design submittal and anticipate awarding the project beginning of 2022 with a construction duration of about 1.5 years. Moving on to the Crow Canyon Road widening project. This is from Alcosta to Doherty Road. This project has been broken up into 2 phases. The total project is $20.1 million funded by SEC GPA and the Transportation Improvement Fund. This is a mitigation requirement of the Doherty Valley Settlement Agreement. The work right now is underway with utility relocation going on. Construction is anticipated to start in September, where we will be doing the actual widening from 2 lanes to 3 lanes in each direction. The cost for phase 1 is $12 million, and the length of time for phase 1 will be about 1.5 years. Oh, and there will be bike lanes associated with this that will be installed, buffered bike lanes in the phase 1 portion and as well as the phase 2 portion. So that has been incorporated into the design. So speaking of bicycles, the Citywide Bicycle Network improvements and enhancements, we have funding received from the COP in the amount of $1.01 million. By the end of this fiscal year, we will have installed bicycle improvements on Montevideo from San Ramon Valley Boulevard to El Costa Boulevard. We have begun the design of improvements on Bollinger from Canyon Lakes to Doherty, as well as from Crow Canyon to San Ramon Valley Boulevard, and also design on Doherty Road from Bollinger Canyon Road North to Bollinger Canyon Road South. So we'll be doing all that installation in fiscal year 21-22. And we'll be, and those will be buffered bike lanes as well. Also, I wanted to add that we're incorporating all types of green bike lane installations, improvements with our pavement management where it is feasible. So we minimize the disruption and can do construction all at the same time.
Maria, how long do those things last? Do we have to repaint them every 5 years, 10 years?
Well, it is a hefty type of paint, so we don't know yet, but it should be at least 5 years.
Okay, thanks.
And part of this is some wayfinding and stuff where people can know where the next bike lane is connecting and things?
Yes, we incorporate it all together as part of the circulation. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
The citywide drainage infrastructure repairs, we did have funding allocated from the COP as well as receiving a grant. So in fiscal year 2021, we completed sediment removal and mitigation work at Norris Creek and also did some maintenance and improvements in the drainage swale along South San Ramon Creek. So work for 21-22, the priority work that we have identified, again, using prior year funding, we have a culvert repair at Deerwood Mill Creek. This is the phase 2 portion. We are completing a drainage inventory study. That is the grant that we received. So we have additional work identified on Norris Creek and some work also on South San Ramon Creek, the access road, and some miscellaneous repairs as well. So in the facilities category, we have a number of things going on here. So the biggest project is the Doherty Station Community Center and Library renovation. We allocated $500,000 to start the project, and we are requesting an additional $1 million from the COP. And we plan on starting the design this summer 2021 with construction next calendar year.
Maria?
Yes.
On the COP form you put up, it had 2.5 million assigned to that, but I only hear about 1.5 million. So what's the other million?
Well, the other $1 million was part of the cost estimate of this project at the beginning when there was a parking lot that was proposed to be part of the improvements of the site. Since then, the parking lot has been removed and has been determined to not be needed at this time. So it's not being allocated towards this project.
Have you been in discussions with the county librarian and the library staff about what their vision of improvements is?
I have not yet. We haven't started those discussions yet, no.
Okay, please do.
Definitely.
And also like a college community, DVC, they are also planning for their library there, right? So maybe it is a good idea to include them also in that conversation.
Well, that's why we're doing this.
So that is DVC. DVC is doing their own library.
Right. And that's essentially done.
Yeah.
Okay, the San Ramon, I'm sorry.
Keep going.
Okay, San Ramon Community Center renovation. So we completed the interior. It looks fantastic. So next step is the exterior. So there's still funding in the CIP, the project for the community center that is there. We'll be starting those discussions this summer as to finalizing the scope of the exterior improvements, and then we'll move forward in the fall for the actual construction. I've already talked about the PCS building. So aquatics equipment and replacement, we have a number of improvements being done at both pools. So the city facilities floor covering, we have, let's see, that's the Iron Horse Gym floor replacement. We have a number of duct cleanings throughout the facilities. The roof covering, the 25,000, there aren't any projects necessarily identified, but the 25,000 is for any unforeseen repairs that we may have to take care of during that fiscal year. Exterior painting and sealing, that's some stucco painting at the pool building, and then some work at the service center, at the San Ramon Service Center. Same with the interior amenities. There's work at the San Ramon Service Center. We'll be replacing at the senior center, the garden view room partition wall, and we'll be doing some work at SRCC, some the interior things like replacing microwaves and things like that. Forest Home Farm structures. So we have a number of painting projects there. The outbuilding painting, which is the barn, the granary, and the fuel shed. And we'll be having improvements to the grotto. And then the marquee installation, which I have already discussed. Moving on to landscaping, we have the centralized irrigation system upgrade, the street landscape planting renovation. We discussed the Doherty Valley Tree Management Plan with the Infrastructure Committee and presented the annual work plan. The funding requested for fiscal year 21-22 is $1 million, which is unidentified funds. In the improvements and repairs for various landscaping and lighting zones are all in the CIP based on each zone. And that was presented separately in our landscaping and lighting district presentations. This came up in the Finance Committee meeting, any types of Iron Horse Trail landscape opportunities. So in speaking with Kathy, she has mentioned that the Parks Department is working on an Iron Horse Trail shade initiative, and this is based on the master plan goal. And the steps to that would be to complete the development of the walking district plan, collaborate and get approval from the county, the East Bay Regional Parks District, and PG&E, identify partners and business sponsors, and develop a plan and cost and a funding scenario to include in a future CIP. So that process is moving forward. And then we will also develop, we are also developing an Iron Horse Trail landscape palette for the approaches to the bridge at the Iron Horse Trail overcrossing. So we are actually in discussions with the designer right now as to what the landscape is going to look like, and kind of carry that off from the bridge off to the sides and down the slopes for the downtown area enhancement.
Oh, great.
When you actually go to work on parts of the Iron Horse Trail. If there's opportunities for community groups to participate, let's please engage with them. Rotary clubs, Sir Optimus, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all those groups can mobilize, 100 people if necessary. So it's cheap labor if you can provide the oversight.
Okay.
And I think there's an opportunity to connect with that market, either marketplace or that shopping complex there, if they'd be, in terms of sponsorship and interested in getting people into their marketplace, and there might be a good opportunity for that sponsorship from them.
Okay, thank you.
I was thinking City Walk, but that's okay.
That I think we'll get.
In the category of other, we have our sidewalk repairs for 22-23 in the amount of $250,000. In the parks category, so we have a number of things going on here. We have our citywide parks amenities and replacements improvements for $577,000. For the various parks, we are replacing barbecues, benches, drinking fountains, picnic tables, 5-bar resurfacing. We are also resurfacing at Limerick Park the basketball court and replacing the tennis court windscreens at Central Park and Soyan Park. We already talked and discussed about the cricket field installation, fountain repairs and replacements. So what that is the fountain repairs at Bollinger fountain lighting. So it's not a repair. It's actually what we are going to do is replace the lights with LED. So I'll hopefully get some savings there by doing that. We have the irrigation booster pump installation at 3 sites in Doherty Valley. The ring rock fountain conversion at Central Park. This was prior year funding, but I did want to highlight it since we will be completing it in the summer and fall of this fiscal year.
What is it, Maria? Are we taking that thing out?
Pardon me?
Are we taking it out?
The
ring rock fountain?
Yes, so there's no fountain. We're actually doing landscaping.
So we're keeping the little toadstool though, right? Whatever that's.
All the rocks and the boulders are all going to stay in place, and we're doing the landscaping around that. So we have the demolition that has already been done, that were components of the fountain. The pergola fabrication in the front of the community center is currently being fabricated. We plan on getting that installed once it's delivered, which we anticipate to be July, with the landscape in August. So we'll get that.
I was thinking of the one that was down by the toadstool, or the little, it's not a fountain really, that kind of looks like a stream that went through it.
Oh, no.
This one's been an, okay.
I also wanted to highlight the San Catano Creek Park. This was added in fiscal year 2024-25. It's not a new project, but it has been programmed for the amount of 1.7 million. This is a condition of approval for the City Walk development, where the developer will begin design and construction when the 450th building permit is issued. The Crow Canyon Gardens facilities improvements, there is prior year funding that is in this CIP. The policy committee heard this update on February 24th and directed staff to gather cost estimates for the renovation of a portion of the MUDS building. We brought it back to the policy committee, and staff was directed to return to the city council with recommendations to not spend additional funding for consultant and to complete the analysis and just decide on the final alternatives. So what was previously presented to the finance committee was a $35,000 allocation in fiscal year 21-22. So that has since been removed, and an appropriation will happen during the fiscal year as needed, based on the decisions of the council as this project moves forward. The shade structure improvement for $222,440. Proposition 68 will fund $177,952. So the local match that is needed is $44,488. Because we were able to release the $35,000 for the Crow Canyon Gardens at this point, we will now fund the local match with the Park Development Fund. The final costs and locations are being discussed. Some of the locations include Arlington Park, Creekside Park, Six Pillars, Piccadilly, and Red Willow. And we're looking at installation in 21-22. In the signals category, we have the Bollinger Canyon and Crow Canyon Roads traffic signals ATSPM. That is underway. We should be completed this summer of 2021. We'll be implementing these upgraded systems at 43 intersections, and this will also include 20 bike detection systems. So that has been a problem with bicyclists when you come up to a signal intersection that there's no detection. So these systems will be able to fix that. It'll improve travel time by monitoring and evaluating corridor traffic signal performance. Another signals project is our citywide intelligent transportation system upgrade. We did receive funding for from the COP. And so we have conduit installation being done by MCI and Verizon. We're performing fiber work in locations identified in the ITS master plan. The funding has gone towards Bollinger Canyon Road from Talavera Drive to Doherty Road North for fiscal year 21-22. So that will cover our downtown area. And then it will also connect the Doherty Valley area to the downtown. And this project will improve signal communications for improved monitoring and programming. So both of these projects have really culminated into the system that we have in place at in the engineering division. At City Hall, we have our traffic operations center that we are really getting geared up, and a lot of the functions associated with these two projects, we can see them and monitor them on our screens and make changes as needed. So that's just the start of a very these very powerful projects that have come into play. And then for signals, traffic signals improvements and enhancements, this is funded by the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund. And these are all replacements based on our traffic signals maintenance plan that we have in public services. So our funding and expenditure projections, all funds are balanced. The Infrastructure Maintenance Fund has a contribution of $1.5 million for 21-22. Right now in the CIP, it is programmed for $1.5 million for years 2 through 5 as well. And this is presented to the Infrastructure Committee. We look at our Park Development Fund as well, because that is very dependent on the the parks funds that we receive. So this budget will stay positive with the anticipation of receiving Aspenwood fees by the end of this fiscal year, the beginning of next fiscal year. Now looking at the unfunded Doherty Valley CSA funded projects, this list shows all the projects being funded, normally funded by the DVCSA, and that is totals $446,000. And then we have the first item, which is the Doherty Valley Tree Management Program, and it's currently unfunded in the amount of $1 million. As I mentioned previously, state structures improvements was on this list, but now it is funded by the Park Development Fund. So the next steps, well, now we're going to council in June sometime to receive the budget for both the capital budget as well as the operating budget. And that's it. I can answer any questions you may have at this time.
Let's start with the finance this time. Member Perkins, then Chair Zafar.
You know, the unfunded piece is always the tricky part. And I still believe that all of those we need to find a way, but in particular the Doherty Valley Tree work program. That clearly is a pay me now or pay me later, but in the pay me later, it increases not just by inflation, but by the damage factor that the trees cause. So we need to find a way to fund that in particular. Thank you.
Chair Zafar.
We've seen this before, so not a lot of comments. Thank you.
Okay. Member Armstrong.
Yeah, I just had one question on the COP. I just want to, been trying to understand this whole concept of what this is all about, but this is like it's a 3-year COP, right? $24 million. And are we not coming to the end of the life of this thing? And we're almost done with this. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So, Eva can correct me, but I believe we have to have spent or appropriated 85% of that, and we're just about there.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then I thought I saw somewhere this week, or maybe it was one of the read ahead materials that, and I hate to keep bringing up cricket fields. I see the design for 25,000, but I thought I saw somewhere where the other 275,000 was going to be in next year. But in your earlier slides, it looked like it was somewhere, 5 years or beyond. Is there a little more fidelity on the timing of the remainder of the project after design?
So the purpose is to get the design going, figure out the true cost associated with the project based on the location and all of the revisions we will need to do based on its whatever location is chosen. And then right now, the 275,000 is beyond 5 years. But what we will do is once we have that funding, the cost, we will move it forward to, if we get it all figured out and have a funding source, we can move it up to as early as 21-22. So it's just a placeholder for beyond 5 years at this moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Sridhar, you got anything?
Yeah, thank you, Maria. 5 years of CAP, that's a lot of work, a lot of great projects. And I cannot end this call without mentioning about Qriket, right? So thank you for adding that part of this list. And Qriket community is very excited and they're eagerly looking forward for the timeline. And one more point is about, as Scott mentioned, or Council Member Perkins mentioned, or Vice Mayor Perkins mentioned about Doherty Valley tree. So I agree with him that better we pay now than later on paying more. So, and also we made that comment even during our infrastructure meeting. So thanks for looking into that. Thanks a lot for all the great work.
And I would just add, I like the way you have it set up. I think we're in good shape to, I'd be ready to approve it now. I have a different point of view, but I think it is in essence the same point of view as Vice Mayor Perkins. Sure, it's cheaper if you pay now. The problem is we've been hit with something that is against our own policies. New development pays its own way, and it hasn't since we've brought up this trees. And what we've done is we've taken 13,000 trees, we're going to replace 5,000. That's not maintenance. That's a redo of a plan that was in Doherty Valley. And how to come up with that money, and we never have been able to do it without raiding from the general fund, is probably the big question. To me, if we could find a way, if we were all doing an L&L into the city, or if we wanted to do, I don't think you're going to do a COP on 5,000 trees or whatever's left. But if it was something like that where we were doing just for trees, I could buy into it, because now, we've had Fahey Park. Did you have to replace all those redwoods, Maria? Or did we chop them down? And I'm looking at Athens Downs now, and it's looking like we're going to lose those too. So, it's not just what's in Doherty Valley, it's trees everywhere. And if you're taking from the general fund to make Doherty Valley whole, then where's the money that's going to be in the rest of the city when you have those trees? So to me, I think there's a second part to this equation if you want to move things up. And that's how are you going to keep the general fund or the reserves at a reasonable level, not just keep lowering the percentage, and find a way to do this master planning of 5,000 trees plus the others that are needed in the city. So I'm ready to put, the way the budget's presented now, I'm fine. If you're kicking in $1 million out of the reserves or whatever for the trees, I'm out. But that's why you have 5 votes. Anything else before we move on to, is there a 3.3? What is it a 4.0? Where are we at? It's an adjourned to May 25th, or where are we?
Yes, the next item is adjournment.
Okay, anybody else? I don't see any hands. We pretty much, have we given a direction that's clear enough? I'm looking at heads. I see kind of shaking of the heads. I see Maria going, what the heck's he talking about? Eva just ducked out completely. There's the genius of the bunch. Then we are adjourned to our next, it's my understanding there will be another special meeting, or is it just full
Yeah, we
council?
will be setting up another special meeting.
Okay, we'll adjourn to the next special meeting somewhere probably around May 25th, correct?
Correct.
Good. We'll see you at, where are we at? 7 o'clock for the real deal?
Yes.
Okay, 7 o'clock for the real deal. Go get something to eat, and thanks for hanging in there. I think we're gonna get through this budget pretty well today, for the rest of 21, 22. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you in a bit.